the assistant today. And I've got one of our very special show animals here. This is Charlie. Now it's actually really important for animals, especially at the moment, to come out here and do training sessions with you guys. At the moment we're not doing our big conservation and action show, just simply because we haven't got enough area for people to sit. So what we're doing is smaller presentations instead. And we're just getting animals used to having people back in the audience. Because for 6 months we didn't have anyone in the audience, and if there was someone sitting here, it was a keeper, so they knew exactly who they were. So having people in the audience that they don't know is actually a big change to this environment and changes their training. So what we do is we bring them out here and we do this training session to allow the animals to get used to having people they don't know back in the audience before we start putting on the big show. Now Charlie here is a tawny frogman. He is one of the original cast members of our show. He is 6 years old now, and he's been doing this for the last 4.5 years, almost 5 years. So Charlie's thing to do is come out here and do this. Nothing. And that's actually what tawny frogmouths are really good at doing. These guys are very different from an owl. They're actually a type of nightjar. So instead of having talons or really sharp claws to catch and kill their prey like owls do, tawny frogmouths use this enormous mouth to scoop up insects that fly past at night time. Do you want to open up nice and wide, Charlie? Being a bright colour as well, inside that bright yellow colour, it's like a big neon sign that a moth comes flying past, attracted to those, and he'll scoop up any nocturnal insects. He's also got little feathers, or almost like whiskers here on the side of his beak, actually helping protect the wing beats of moths as they fly past. These guys are actually relatively common in and around Melbourne, even in our CBD areas, because these guys cope really well with urbanisation, and they take advantage of the fact that we have night lights or porch lights that attract insects and use them to find their food. These guys also pair for life, and when they do pair, they tend to find an area they feel comfortable in, and when they have their babies, if it's a good place, they'll go back every single year and breed. And a lot of people tell me they quite often see these birds in their backyards every single year. When they do make a nest, though, they're not the greatest of nest makers. They don't use a hollow of a tree. They just basically lay a few sticks flat across the perch, lay their eggs on them, hatch them, and then the babies come out. They're basically pretty independent. They are fed, but they can eat whole food items as soon as they come out. Unlike a parrot that used to have food regurgitated to them, these guys can just eat basically crickets and moths from day one. So Charlie comes out here, sits on his perch out here, and the other thing he likes to do is come over here, up you go. So he's trained to sit on my hand, and every time he does that, he gets a reward. Not that one today, what about this one? He's got favourite food, he likes some better than others. Today he is getting mince balls, which is a little mince ball we make out of kangaroo mince, insectable meat, and some eggs, some calcium powder. And he's also got some really, really big mealworms here as well, which he really likes to eat. I'm going to show everyone how your big mouth, Charlie. There we go. These guys swallow food whole, so basically it has to go down one bite. So I said moths are mainly their food, but also things like frogs, small lizards, and even small mice these guys can eat as well. So his baby rats are actually his favourite thing in the world to eat. So this is his amazing trick. This is how he survives in the wild, as you can see, amazing camouflage. If he feels worried at all about the environment around him, if he sees something that might be potentially scary, what he'll do is actually flatten his feathers, stretch his body up and stay perfectly still. So they look just like a broken limb on a branch. Do you guys have any questions about Charlie? Charlie's also one of our essential, very, very good selfie stars. So during our show time, he actually has a special selfie perch he sits on, and he gets selfies with people. And as you can imagine, he's actually really good at selfies, aren't you, Charlie? Yeah, he stays perfectly still. Now what I'm going to do, guys, I'm actually going to put Charlie back here. He's got a special perch up here. Makes him feel really, really, really safe. What he's going to do is he's actually going to stay out here. Stay, get comfortable, and he's going to stay there while I get the next animal out, and we'll just show you how amazing camouflage these guys are. And as you can imagine, if I didn't tell you he was there or point him out, you certainly wouldn't see him out here. So I'm just going to get our next animal out, and I'm going to give Ollie here my Charlie food just in case he needs it. There we go. Socially distancing at its best. Now just a warning, guys, next animal will come back out before I do, so don't be worried. He just loves to be he's the life of the party, really. One of a kind. a barking owl. Now, he was born here at the park. His parents are actually the barking owls we have on display, who you may have actually walked past already. He just turned 6 years old, and when he was born, he was actually our first clutch of barking owls we ever had here at the park. And we always like to see how our babies are developing in the nest box, so we have a way of checking. We checked inside the box. We realised that Indy's brothers were actually sitting on top of him. There were two other bigger chicks. They were getting all of the food and he wasn't getting any of it, because that's how nature works sometimes. And so we decided for him was to remove him from the nest box and allow the keepers to hand raise him. And I was lucky enough to be chosen, basically. So this one's my baby. I looked after him from when he was a little chick, so this is my baby. And I did lots of work with him when he was very young. And what we've been doing with Indy is we have been training him for a long time now to be very comfortable out here. Now, he is what we call a nocturnal bird, just like Humphrey. He is a nighttime animal. So he would normally come out either at nighttime. Barking owls also come out sometimes at dawn and at dusk though as well, so they will hunt things like rats, mice, possums and small birds on the wing, and they will do it at dusk and dawn as well as throughout the night. And the reason they do that is because they have those huge big eyes, and instead of having a facial disc like many owls do, and that facial disc on owls is a bit different. Yeah, he's very hungry when he comes out here because this is his food time. Unlike some owls that use hearing to locate their food, he doesn't have that facial disc or that heart-shaped ring of feathers. He doesn't have hearing the same way they do. He uses his eyesight to locate his food. So barn owls can go out and they can hear the heartbeat of a mouse in the grass. They don't even need to see it. And that facial disc allows them to pinpoint location of sound, just because it works like a giant amplifier. Whereas Indy, his hearing is really good, but as you can imagine, his eyes work in low light, but also at nocturnal and nighttime as well. So that's how he finds his food, is by sight mainly, and they are what's called a sight or hawk owl. It's those big yellow eyes. Now, Indy has been very comfortable with keepers. He works quite closely with most of us, and he is the bird that we train the keepers how to handle birds, because he's been doing it for so long. And we don't want you to today handle birds of prey anyway. And what we've got here, we've actually trained him to know that this glove here is the greatest thing in the world, basically. This is what we call a station point for him. So I need to be able to go into his enclosure at other times, walk in there and not have him land on me. And then when I go in there and I want him to land on me, I need something for him to feel safe on. So that's this glove. It's a falconry glove. It's really, really thick leather. It means that he can hold on really tightly to it. And he does have very sharp claws on his talons. And those talons are how he finds and kills his food. So that's how powerful they are. Well, we want him to be able to really comfortable out here, hold on tightly to this, and know that when he's on this glove, good things happen. And good things include food. Yep. And scratches for him. He likes scratches because they are a bird that does pair up, so they will groom each other. And so I groom him, and he does like a little scratch. You can play with that mince. You can eat it or play with it. Mince doesn't taste very nice today. He likes a scratch on the back of the neck, and he will actually make little bird noises, and he'll actually lean into it when I find the right spot. So there's a good spot right there. So he really enjoys a scratch, as you can see. So yeah, he's a bit of a softie, this one. He's not a flight bird. We do have a couple of owls that we free fly, but we found out with our training that not every animal is suited to what we want them to do. Some are suited for other things. So Indy is not very confident flying when he lands somewhere and there's no one around him. He feels a bit exposed. And if that happens, if he goes and lands on a perch out there and something comes out and scares him, he tries to fly into the tree and hide. Whereas other owls do not care what happens down this area. He's just a bit more sensitive about certain things, so he likes to stay really close to the keepers. But that means and that's one of the reasons, that's a noisy miner. That is a native bird, but they are really territorial during breeding season, and they will come down and they will actually swoop at our barking owls. And he's just watching it. And so what we've done with him, you can see he looked at that and he realised that it wasn't scary, so now he's going to give me a little nibble. So every time he sees something that we might think of him seeing as scary or threatening or make him feel uncomfortable, I just give him food. And that's sort of training called counter-conditioning. So you're pairing something he doesn't necessarily want to be around or something he might not like with food. So we've done desensitising, so we've brought him out here when we know it's safe and got him used to the noises of the birds when it's really close to us, and then every time he looks a bit worried, we'll give him a scratch, we'll give him some comfort, or we'll give him some food. So he starts to realise that this thing that he thinks is scary is actually not scary at all. No scary things bring really cool stuff. So that means that he's not at all worried about anything in his environment. It does mean though that in like the flight birds we bring out, we can only fly them in this area. I can walk Indy almost anywhere around the park as long as he's with me and on a glove. He's got food, he's happy and safe, and he'll wander around and say hi to people. So he does different things. He goes and walks around the park, but he also comes out here and shows you guys just how cool and beautiful these guys are up nice and close. You right, Andy? Yeah. Do you guys have any questions at all? I'll bring him a bit closer if you want, guys. The other thing we're hopefully going to train him in the future is that barking owls, obviously, as their name suggests, making barking vocalization, does sound just like a dog barking. And so he will bark at us when he hears us, because even though in the wild is a territory call, for Indy it's an attention seeking thing. So he barks at the keepers for attention because he knows that we will come over. So whenever he hears my voice, he'll start barking in his enclosure, and we're trying to train him to do that out here on the glove, and then hopefully get him to do it on cue. So we can ask him to bark and he'll bark. Can you bark? Can you do a little bark? You can do a little one today for me? Little one? You just really want the food today, do you? Little bark? It's like, I just want the food, Mum. Just give me the food.
How do you stop them barking for attention when you've got a puppy that's...
Oh, see, puppies are very different. So there's a couple of things you can do. Is you can redirect their attention when they bark. So you get
the window wanting to...
Yeah, so... redirect them to something like station, so they know that if they're on that station they get fed. So it's literally just redirect. You can teach them to bark on a cue, and then if it's trained well enough, it's what we call on stimulus control, which means it only happens when you ask for it. So there's a couple of things
down here.
I spent a lot of time training. Or you can train, and this is what we do most of the time, is we train the animals to do what we call an incompatible behaviour. So choose something that they can, when trained to do something that they physically can't bark whilst doing. So teach them to close their mouths, or give them something to chew on, because they can't bark while they're chewing. So give them a Kong, something. Kongs are really good because you can not only put like small amounts of peanut butter in them, and it takes ages to get them out. Sometimes puppies will often bark for boredom because they want your attention, and that's what it is. So redirect them. You can either do some training with them, so get them to go to the station and reinforce that, or teach them to incompatible behaviour. So things like we have cockatoos who like to chase our shoes. So instead of sitting there and walking away from them, because that's a reinforcing thing. And if you do training with us, we always learn that if a behaviour either stays the same or it increases in frequency, it means that behaviour is being reinforced somehow. So that is what a behaviour, that's the training scale of behaviour. So if the behaviour decreases, it means it's not being reinforced at all. If it stays the same or increases in frequency, and you may not think it's being reinforced, but somehow it's being reinforced, and we see reinforcement as treatments, but it could be anything in the environment that the animal perceives as a reinforcement. We don't use the word treat, sometimes we use reinforcer, because for some animals it's reinforcing to be left alone. Some animals it's reinforcing to have scratches. Some will be like, don't touch me, that's not reinforcing. Treats are reinforcing, though. It depends on the animal. So somehow if it's staying the same, it's obviously the behaviour you're reinforcing, or the environment is reinforcing that animal somehow. So you can either work that out, or you can train them to do something else as soon as they bark. So yeah, that's the positive reinforcement way of getting them to do that. Sometimes ignoring it enough will extinguish the behaviour, but extinguishing can take a long time, because if you try to extinguish a behaviour, what will happen, it will get worse to start off with, because the animal will get frustrated. Yeah. And that's the thing about, if you do something like that, you have to keep going. If you reinforce it once, then you have to start again. It does not work unless you are constantly doing it the exact same way every single time without anyone else interfering. And that is the problem about, yeah, I know, yeah. That's what I'm saying. If you train something else, train it to do something else. So if it barks, something like that, wait for a pause and then say station, because the other thing you can do is accidentally train what we call a superstitious behaviour, which is the animal will bark until you get them to do something, and then they will use that bark as a cue to get you to get them to do something. And dogs are very smart, so you often have to wait for them to just, even 3 seconds is enough for them to stop barking, and then go and get them to station or do something, or you can teach them to close their mouths, which isn't actually that hard, but you just have to be good. Clickers work really well because you can click precise, the exact behaviours, how and stuff. This bird trains me sometimes, I have to admit. The other thing is sometimes, and it happens with all our animals, we'll be out here and we'll be talking to you guys, and the animal will be doing something, and I've trained a superstitious behaviour by accident, which is this. So he does this, the tapping on the glove. That's his superstitious behaviour that we accidentally trained, because he does train a lot of the keepers who are used to having birds on a glove to come out here and handle him, because he's like pretty good at being out here and relaxing. He's trained us, so we'll sit there, we'll talk to you guys, we'll tap on the glove and we'll go, oh, you're there, and give him food. So he's training us at the same time. So sometimes that happens when you are training animals. You will teach them what we call the superstitious behaviour, which is literally him. He'll lean forward, he'll tap on the glove if I leave him long enough, and that's just him going, well, I'm frustrated today, you're not doing anything with me. You won't get off the glove, that's just him going, kiss me, hello. But we've trained that by accident, so that's just kind of, some things like that happen with animals, so that's kind of what I think. But yeah, boredom, if you eliminate the boredom, often they'll stop barking, just because they want attention. So Kongs are great. The other thing you can do is put food in them and freeze them, because they're rubber. So you put food and some water or something in there and freeze it, and then it takes heaps longer to get it out, especially during summer. Because they have to wait for not only for it to be soft enough to chew, but it's soft enough to actually melt. So yeah, freeze stuff in there. Yeah.
Good idea. Thank you.
Yeah.